Good morning, students. Today's topic is the role of motivation in learning. This topic's introduction is motivation, as the name suggests, is what moves us. It is the reason we do anything at all. For teachers, a lack of motivation has long been one of the most frustrating obstacles to student learning. While the concept of motivation may intuitively seem fairly simple, a rich research literature has developed as researchers have defined this concept in a number of ways. Social scientists and psychologists have approached the problem of motivation from a variety of different angles, and education research have adopted many of these ideas into the school context. In this motivation, while there is a great deal of overlap between motivation theories, researchers differ in their identification of the underlying belief systems leading to motivational variation. Some theorists emphasize belief in oneself and one's competency. Others priorities goal orientation. And a third group argues that the difficulty of the tasks shapes individual motivation. This resource will provide an introduction to various theories of motivation, explain the importance of motivation of learning, and outline several practical strategies that teachers can use to support and promote student motivation. And next, the motivation describe the wants or needs that direct behavior toward a goal, but why we do the things we do, what motivations underlying laying our behavior. Is motivation an inherited trait, or is motivation influenced by reinforcement and consequences that strengthen some behaviors and weaken others? And the next is the theories of motivation. Intrinsic versus extrinsic. A common distinction made in a literature is being extrinsic and intrinsic forms of motivation. Intrinsic motivation is the act of doing an activity purely for the joy of doing it. And it is, frankly, very rare in school and work context. Extrinsic motivation, or the use of external rewards or punishments to encourage student work completion, is generally painted is in education as the enemy of good instructions. This is the true to a certain extent because as learning is comparable to exploration, the use of rewards or punishments tends to outline a boundary around how much a student should explore. And these theory is intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Some motives are biological, like our need for food or water. However, the motives to that we will be more interested in are more psychological in general. We discuss motivation as being intrinsic, arising from internal factor, or intrinsic, arising from external factors. Intri- Intrinsically motivated behaviors are performed because of the sense of personal satisfaction that they bring, while extrinsically motivated behaviors are performed in order to receive something from others. And this picture, intrinsic motivation from within, autonomy, mastery, purpose, and extrinsic motivation from outside, compensation, punishment, reward, etc. And however, there are actually many different forms of extrinsic motivation, and not all are equally like to lead students down a path of apathy and dissociation from the joy of learning. For example, one extrinsically motivated student may work hard in school because they fear failure and the anger of their parents. And another may study hard because they see the value of the content in helping them work toward their dream of becoming a doctor. Neither student is these example is intrinsically motivated. Their goals lie outside the simple enjoyment of the activity. However, the second student is likely to be more independent and self guided in their learning because they recognize the value of these extrinsic rewards. This form of motivation is much more sustainable because it does not require constant threats or prize from teachers or parents. There is also some research to suggest that extrinsic motivation can lead to intrinsic motivation in the sense that a student may embark on a task for reasons associated with extrinsic motivation but become intrinsically motivated through the process of en- engaging with the task and learning to value it. And the next is the achievement goal theory. Achievement goal theory is the achievement is the next is the flow theory. Flow is described as a psychological state in which an individual is purely intrinsically motivated and in which their sense of time is muted. Students experience flow during mastery oriented tasks. This state is accompanied by a lesson of self conscious thoughts and feelings. While there are many different psychological states that a student can experience throughout the learning process, such as wonder, confusion, worry, and helplessness, flow is the most effective state of learning. Not only do students learn a great deal while experiencing flow because their learning is internally motivated, but they will continue without consent teacher prodding. And the next theory is achievement goal theory. Achievement goal theory argues that all motivating motivation can be linked to one's orientation towards a goal. According to this theory, there are two forms of goal: performance goals and mastery goals. Performance goals are based on satisfying one's ego by appearing smart in front of one's peers or on achieving a sense of superiority. And this mastery goals are mastery goals are as they sound, motivated by a desire to fully master a skill or concept. Student with mastery goals will finish a project when they are proud of it rather than when it meets the minimum requirements. Even after they turn in the assignment to be assessed, they may continue to reflect on it and make refinements. Mastery goals largely align with intrinsic motivation in the former theory. Some researchers in education have broken the concept of achievement goal theory down further, drawing the idea of approach and avoidant behavior from psychology. As the name suggests, students with approach performance goals actively seek to outperform other, while those with avoidant performance goals actively work to avoid being seen as inferior. While less studied approach and avoidant orientations also apply to mastery goals as well. And the next theory we see expectancy value theory. Expectancy value theory is the goal orientation has a strong impact on persistence through a rigorous task as described in expectancy value theory. According to this model, expectations and values influence performance and task choice directly. There are two main components of this theory. First, our students' effort, the level of challenges they choose, and ultimately their performance will follow their expectation of success or failure. And second, the extent to which a student values learning a skill or concept directly impacts their effort and mastery of that skill or concept. And these expectancy values theories, expectations and values themselves are influenced by belief about one's expectations and by belief about the difficulty of the task. If the student remembers doing well or feeling satisfied when completing a similar task in the past, they are more likely to push themselves to work hard on the current task. However, if the student remembers that the activity was too difficult to be completed and they become frustrated, or not difficult enough and they become bored, they are unlikely to engage with it. These beliefs, goals, and memories are also affected by a student's beliefs of other people's attitudes towards the expectations from them and by their own interpretations of their previous achievement outcomes. Children's perceptions and interpretations are influenced by a broad array of social and cultural factors, and especially by parents and teachers. And the flow theory. Flow theory is the is described as a psychological state in which an individual is purely instructionally motivated and in which their sense of time is muted and student experience flow during mastery oriented task. This state is accompanied by a lessening of self conscious thoughts and feelings. While there are many different psychological states that a student the student can also the flow theories and the theories experience throughout the learning process, such as wonder, confusion, worry, and helplessness. Flow is the most effective state of learning. Not only do students learn a great deal while experiencing flow because their learning is internally motivated, but they will continue without constant teacher prodding. These students will continue the learning process beyond the minimum requirements or even outside the confines of the school context. Flow is said to occur within Goldilocks conditions. Tasks that are too difficult for the student will engender frustration and helplessness, while tasks that are too easy will cause the student to feel bored. Both these states of mind lead to disengagement from the activity. When possible, differentiations for individual student ability allows students to practice skills and concepts that are just within their current ability. Then some theory of theorists classify motivation as a stable traits of the person, while others consider it to be more task specific. Individual specific motivation describes the orientation with which all activities are approached, while task specific motivation is dependent upon the appeal of the activity. Both forms can be improved through positive reinforcement. Just difficult enough tasks, mastery oriented goals, and plenty of opportunities for success. B research indicates that even small initial success are motivating for students. Individual specific motivation is not the same as genetic predisposition to be a motivated person. Any individual can garner a more motivated outlook through specific supports and strategy. This resource focus on motivation as an individual specific trait. Because the research for this argument is fairly complying, and because the efforts to improve motivation of a person as a whole rather than towards one activity have greater potential impact. And the next is the nature versus nurture. Each of these theory point of the malleability of motivation, while natural genetic variability will lead to differences in a student's initiate drive. Every student has the desire to reach their goal. Our task as teachers then is to apply what we know from social science research to create environments, instructions, and activities to cultivate student motivation. And the next is the why is motivation important? First and foremost, motivation is an orientation towards learning. Therefore, it impacts how likely a student is either to give up, to push forward, and how thoughtful their reflection on their learning will be. The deeper the motivation for pursuing an activity, the more likely that the students will not accept easy answers to complex questions. In short, intrinsic motivation for fosters strong and flexible critical thinking skills. On the other hand, a motivation and purely extrinsic motivation lead to low interest and academic persistence. And the next is the motivation for fosters creativity and critical thinking. Students who are intrinsically motivated thread learning like play. As a result, they are more likely to flip the learning on its head to see it from a new angle. Motivated students are not more intelligent than unmotivated students, but their need to find out the answer to a question or to master a concept pushes their thinking. And therefore, motivated students, by virtue to thinking longer and harder and enjoying the challenge of being confused, will ask deeper, more thought provoking questions. Motivated students are more able to adapt, learn content to new situations because they tend to reflect on underlying cause or frameworks. And the next is the motivation cultivates reliance and self insurance. When a student is truly engrossed in task, they have less cognitive and emotional energy to focus on social image. An individual who engage in intrinsically motivating activities report that their self-consciousness and other stressors trends to fade for the period of the activity. Motivated students are also more able to emotionally bounce back from a low grade on a test or a harsh criticism from a teacher or peer. And this because intrinsically motivated students are not driven by fear of failure or criticism. They are less likely to disengage in such circumstances. With that said, every student does feel the demotivating effects of negative feedback. Even if driven, students experiences them to a lesser extent. And the next point is motivation and agency. Agency may be defined briefly as a sense of purpose, and autonomy is striving after one's goals. Agency and motivation are inextricably linked concepts because as a student becomes more driven to reach a goal, they consequently develop a stronger sense of purpose in directing their energy towards that goal. And when it comes to educational attainment, highly motivated students find a way to frog their own path and tend to be skeptical of the limitations set by others. As professionals, motivated individuals also tend to be sec- skeptical of established ideas or rules of the field and instead constantly challenge themselves by experimenting with new ideas. How do we cultivate motivation? While, while the above theories may differ in emphasis, each can support a student motivation through the following practical applications. Practice growth mindset. Students who feel like they will improve through hard work will exert more effort than those who believe that their success is based on intelligence. Teaching students to use the phrase yet when explaining their gaps is knowledge help to move them away from this deterministic orientation. And the practice is, for example, if a student says, I cannot do that, suggest that you can do that yet, making a conscious effort to provide wait time also removes the pressure of needing to be the first to find the answer. When students come to realize that their teacher will always wait 5 seconds or so before calling on a student rather than always calling on the first hand up, they will be more likely to engage with the struggle of thinking through the problem. Finally, by keeping the emphasis or progress rather than scores, growth mindset pushes students to continuously challenge themselves and reflect on their improvement. Even small improvements and success can help to super a student's motivation. And the next is the encourage self efficiency. Students who are paralyzed by low academic self confidence will struggle to drive their own motivation. A sense of competition is enhanced through optimal challenges. These are also referred to as just right challenges because they are difficult enough to be just above the student's current ability to work independently, but easy enough for the student to follow along with the teacher. As the student practices this new skill or concept, the teacher slowly removes their structured support, making it more and more difficult. This slow removal of support paired and the students are the support of teacher with positive reinforcement and opportunities to receive support along the way keeps students at this level of optimal challenges. As they improve, consistent small success will further enhance motivation. And the next is in addition. In addition, most of us can relate to the value of being reassured of one's own competition. To learn a skill or concept, students often bases their view of their own competition on how they believe their teacher views them. Therefore, teacher observations of student effort encourage a sense of competition, as well as pointing out how far the student has come in their learning. And the when student have a firm sense that they are regarded as competent, they will be more likely to treat learning like play, making mistakes and taking risk. Threats and underlying deadlines tend to dismiss this orientation towards play like learning. And the next is normalize and the struggle. Normalize student may give up because they falsely believe that if they were going to succeed, it would be easy. Teachers can distinguish this misconception by providing examples of failure that when no individuals overcome along their journey towards success and minimize competition when there is one right answer. A pressure to complete tend to diminish motivation unless the two students are and perceive themselves to be equally competent. If a student at the top of the class is pitted against a student who is struggling, the later student may feel that there is no reason to try. And the next is develop optimally challenging mastery oriented goals, differentiating tasks so they are appropriately challenging allows students to maintain optimal engagement. When students are working just within their current ability, they are drawn in by their curiosity to find the answer and support by the belief that they can find the answer. Teachers can also encourage students to set aesthetic learning goals rather than performance goals. And according acknowledge but don't to potential hurdles. Student how believe that they can succeed are more likely to reach their goals. However, it is important that a student consider what may go wrong in order to avoid being emotionally averse when they encounter setbacks. In fact, letting students know that they will encounter setbacks and that they are entirely normal takes away some of their sting at the moment. and the measuring moment motivation. Periodically, in evaluating students, social emotional learning serves the dual purpose of informing the teacher of their students' progress and well being and promoting students to practice self awareness. While formal school wide social emotional assessments are valuable for collecting comprehensive data, these measures are time consuming and cannot practically be implemented more than once or twice each year. In these words, the topic here, the topic is and the lastly the references of the topic is there. These references. And the next is the MCQs, multiple choice questions. First question is the key to motivating motivation in the classroom is the teacher's personality, the emotional climate of the classroom, an interest inherent in the subject matter, in sustainability of the curricular experiences. The answer of this question is an interest inherent in the subject matter. And the next question, which one of the following is an emotion? Assuming attention, stimulus, and memory. The answer of this question is amusement. And the next question, a student work hard to get first rank in his class. The type of motivation behind his hard work is intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation, zero motivation, none of the above. The answer of this question is extrinsic motivation is the right answer. And next question, motivation to learn can be sustained by focusing on mastery oriented goals, giving very easy tasks to children, focusing on rote memorization, pursuing the child. The right answer of this question is focusing on mastery oriented goals. And the next question, Goldman, is associated with which of the following? Social intelligence, emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, and general intelligence. The answer of this question is emotional intelligence. And the next question, which of the following is a prerequisite to learning a language? Motivation, limitation, habit formation, oral approach. The answer of this question is motivation. Motivation is the answer. And the next question, which of the following is a social motivate? Self pride, love, hunger, thirst. The answer of this question is self pride. Next is which of the following statement is correct about the nature of emotions? Emotional expressions are modified by learning. Emotions are permanent state of the organism. Emotions are arou- aroused by internal stimuli. Certain facial expressions of emotional have different meanings. The right answer of this question is emotional expressions are modified by learning. And the next question, Rohan is reading the latest Bahubali comic book because he cannot wait to see what happened to Bahubali and his family. This is the best example of only intrinsic motivation, only extrinsic motivation, both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and either intrinsic or nor extrinsic motivation. The right answer of this question is only intrinsic motivation. And the next and last question is this topic is the nature of emotion correctly depicts in which of the following statement. Some emotions has behavioral aspect. Emotions are permanent state of the organism. Emotional expressions cannot be modified by learning. Every emotions are accompanied by a feeling. The right answer of this question is every emotion is an accompanied by a feeling is the right answer of this question. Here the all about the topic, the role of motivation in learning. At the end of this topic, thank you.